boogeyman.
Welcome to the Inferno. I'm Papa John, and I'm here to guide you through all the hellish sides of horror. And today we are talking about the 2021 reboot of Wrong Turn. Now, for a point of reference, I've only seen the original one and this one. I haven't seen any of the sequels, and I didn't even see the original one until a few days before I watched the reboot. That being said, going into it, it seemed like a franchise that I should be a big fan of because I love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, and I'm also a fairly big fan of the Hills Have Eyes franchise, at least the original and the remake. And I just kind of love that whole cannibal family type of stuff. And so this seemed like a franchise right up my alley. The original seemed like a movie that was right up my alley. That being said, I wasn't a fan of it. It felt like a far inferior Hills Have Eyes ripoff. This isn't a Wrong Turn 2003 review, though. This is a Wrong Turn 2021 review. So let's get into this. Now, when this movie first started off, I was getting very worried because there's a moment on like a bed as well as in a bar where the moment on the bed was done by like the main character's boyfriend. His speech there as well as kind of the interactions in the bar, I was afraid they were going to go this kind of cheap, heavy-handed, almost kind of Get Out version of Wrong Turn. And I love Get Out to death. It was one of my top 5, maybe top 3 horror movies of the last decade, but the way they were going about it, it felt very heavy-handed at first, and it just didn't feel right with the franchise. And then on top of that, I actually thought the main character was pretty annoying in the first little bit of this, especially one point in the movie where someone within the main group kills someone outside the group. I found her pretty annoying, but then something happens about halfway through, and this is where we'll get to spoilers, where it makes you second guess that. I found her annoying, but at the same time, she was kind of right. So maybe it's not really a good criticism of the movie. So it kind of made me second guess my personal feelings about whether she was annoying or not and everything. And I thought that was a brilliant twist to put in there. I love how they kind of used the Wrong Turn name to subvert your expectations. They kind of use the name of the movie as a red herring, and I know that can piss a lot of people off. But one thing I will say is it's the same writer and creator as the original Wrong Turn. It's not like someone new came to the franchise and decided the rest of them sucked. It's the same kind of writer and creator of the original. So it's someone that appreciates the original as well. And I like the way they did this. They almost took this Midsommar route. It kind of became this cult horror movie halfway through. And I just love kind of the way they make you question what you think is barbaric. And so I was actually finding myself really enjoying this movie. I was thinking I was going to give this movie like a fantastic score and fantastic rating and everything. And I was just loving it to death. But I don't think it quite stuck the landing because there are some issues here. I've seen some people saying they think the movie's too long, and I completely disagree. I actually think it's a little too short, and here's why. The second act is extremely rushed. The minute they get to the cult, and the minute the sentencing's finished, it just jumps ahead. And then the next thing you know, the boyfriend is basically one of the cult people, but you never get to see the development of him. You can see why he would become that way, but you don't actually get to see him develop into that. So there's like a bunch of development there missing there in the middle of the second act. And that's why I think it's too short. Now, I don't think it needs like a big, huge thing. It's an hour and 50 minutes. You could easily just throw on 10 minutes there to make it 2 hours. It's still a normal length movie. All of that being said, I think the third act is where it kind of loses its momentum, simply because there's a part where they go through caves and there's like these zombies. You know, I mean, I know like they're the victims or whatever being sentenced to the darkness or whatever, but they're like zombies. They like their eyeballs have been poked through and everything. Like they should honestly be dead, and yet they're like walking around eating humans and everything. It's weird. That never really gets explained. But the thing that really does it in for me is I'm very torn on the way the movie ends, because I think it's a badass ending that I love. But there's a small story seed in there that would have been absolutely perfect for a sequel that gets thrown away because of like the last 5-ish, 10-ish minutes. You could have easily had an awesome sequel where it takes place like a year later, the baby's been born, and the father of the baby, the biological father, comes back to retrieve the baby, and you just have this awesome movie where they're trying to keep the baby safe, which gives it this big, huge sense of urgency, and you just have this great idea for a sequel. But they threw all of that away by killing off the biological father. And, you know, for as much as I love that end credits scene and think it's like one of the most badass end credit scenes of all I've ever seen, and love it for that reason, it kind of threw away this awesome seed for a sequel story, because you can still do a thing where the cult comes back to retrieve the baby, but it won't have the same impact unless it's a biological father, in my opinion. Given my issues with this movie, I still think it's a great horror movie. I don't think it's going to be the best horror movie of the year. I don't even think it's probably going to be in the top 5 or so horror movies of the year. But I do think it's a vast, big improvement upon the original. And I think Wrong Turn's 2021 reboot pretty much deserves to be in the third circle of hell. And the reason I'm putting it there is I don't see it falling any lower than that. It's a good movie. It's not necessarily mediocre or bad. It's a good movie. So I think it belongs there. But it's also a movie I could see rising upon rewatches, upon time passing. And so I just figured it's a safe spot to put it. But go ahead and tell me your thoughts on the Wrong Turn reboot in the comments section down below. And if you enjoyed my thoughts, even if you didn't, go ahead and smash that thumbs up icon. Hit the notification bell and the subscribe button. That was a little out of order. And always have a hell of a good time.